Hi there, my name is Kathy and I would like to welcome you to the orientation session for the Certificate 2 in Meat Processing. In today's session, we will cover the introduction to the meat processing team, specific meat processing department and course details, requirements for the course, equipment and etc., student support services, learning services, are covered through the LRC information. Student ID cards are available on pickup from campus. So let me introduce you to the team. Peter O'Rourke, who is one of our meat processing teachers.
Hi there. I'm Peter O'Rourke, and I've been a retail butcher for about 35 years, and I've also done training in abattoirs and boning rooms, and I've been doing retail butcher training with William Angus for about three years, and having a great time doing it. Thank you.
We have Ray Ashman, who is also a meat processing teacher.
Hi everybody. I've been working with William Angus since 1986 now. My background is working in retail butcher shops, small goods areas and boning rooms. So I'll be just hanging around and helping you out from time to time.
We have Shirin Fan, who is the Student Management Officer. Unfortunately, she's not with us today. And then there's myself. I'm Kathy Maestodovich. I'm the Food Processing Coordinator, and I look after the meat processing area. Peter, would you like to tell us a little bit about the qualification?
Okay, for this qualification, there are 14 units of competency. 6 are core units and 8 are elective units. Now, the 6 core units are units that if you're going to do anything in meat processing, you need to have a qualification, competency in those 6 units. That's why they call the core units. And then we've selected 8 units that we feel that will be quite advantageous if you want to do different pathways into the meat industry as far as meat processing. So some of those units are, we have AMP COR 201, which is maintain personal equipment. Now this is covering the cleaning and maintenance and use of your knives, your gloves, your aprons, boots, pouches, hats, coats, overalls, earmuffs, all those sorts of things that keep the product safe and you safe while you're in the meat processing area. It is essential that all these things are kept and maintained at a proper level for your protection and also the protection of the product. Then we go on to hygiene and sanitation practices, which covers personal hygiene, very important these days. The growth of bacteria, how it grows and what it needs to grow, cleaning and plant and equipment. This is one of the most important parts of the meat processing. We've got to produce a safe product, and this is one of the parts where we're heavily regulated. So we definitely need to know how and why we have to do this. Then we have AMP COR 203, which is comply with quality assurance and HACCP requirements. HACCP, once again, is our food safety plan. So what is it and how do we do it? And what's the documentation that's needed to make sure that we are adhering to the regulatory requirements? And then we have AMP COR 204, which is follow safe work policies and procedures, covers the OH&S. So we're dealing with dangerous machinery, we're dealing with knives. So we have to look at all the hazards and the risks in the meat industry and make sure that we adhere once again to the Act and the guidelines to make sure that everybody is safe. Then we go on to AMP COR 205, communicate in the workplace. It covers the need for good communication and concise communication. In some of the meat processing areas you can end up in, like boning rooms and abattoirs, there's a huge amount of noise. So just talking sometimes doesn't actually cut it. So you need to be able to communicate. You're also working with a number of different cultures and religions. So you've got to learn how to communicate with respect and make sure that everybody is communicating properly. And communicating is making sure you send a message and receive a message properly. So we cover all those necessary things. AMP COR 206 is overview of the meat industry, the industry organisations and their role, and who's covered in the paddock to plate. What is paddock to plate? So we cover that. What organisations look after processing, what organisations look after retail, who does the research, who does the development and so on. So all these things are accounted and looked after in that unit. AMP X209 sharpen knives, the correct way to sharpen a bony knife and steak knife on a stone. So it's not easy. It looks easy. It's not easy. So we go through that and make sure that you end up knowing the correct way to sharpen a knife. Now, some people never get it because they don't practice enough. We'll be doing it each day to make sure that you've got a good understanding of how a bony knife is and steak knife is sharpened. And it's very pleasing to see when people first start this course, the way they sharpen the knife, and by the time they finish the course, 99.9% have a good understanding of how to get a good edge on a knife. And the next one is, the next unit is, trim meat for further processing, AMP 102. So trimming meat for mincing and preparing cuts or for slicing or further processing. So how do you trim the meat up properly? Do you scratch around like a chalk? No, we don't want that. We want you to make good, quick, clean cuts and making sure you're not taking too much meat off with the fat. So it does get a little bit more in it than what it looks like, just rather than cutting a bit of fat off. You want to make sure there's no meat on the fat and making sure that you get all the fat off that you need and any other contamination or any other sinews that we may need off. AMP R104, prepare mince and mince products. So preparing mince and sausage mince and mince for value-added products, correct usage and cleaning of the mincer. A little bit more to using a mincer than just throwing some meat down. You learn how to put it together, how to pull it apart, how to work it safely. So all these things are in that unit. How to make sure the meat goes through, what temperature you've got to keep the meat at. So, and what speed do you feed the mincer? So all these things are involved in that. AMP 101, identify species of meat cuts, identifying primal cuts of beef, lamb and pork. So we'll break down some beef, lamb and pork into primal cuts, and by the end of the course you'll be able to identify those primal cuts without any labels. You just look at them and be able to tell us what they are. AMPR 208, make and sell sausages. Covers the mincing, filling and linking a variety of sausages in different types of casings. So you'll cover that, how to put the sausage filler together. Once you've got the mince, how to fill the mincer up, how to fill out the casings. And the most interesting part, how to link sausages by hand. So all those sorts of things are covered in the sausages. And what different casings we use and why do we use them. AMPR 207, vacuum pack product in retail operations, the advantages and disadvantages of vacuum packing. So, and the different types of machines there are for vacuum packing and the different bags that you need for the different products and the best way to do that. And what are the advantages and disadvantages. AMPR 209, produce and sell value-added products. So you're producing some shazliks, pastry products, stir fries. Quite an interesting one. It's a way the retail meat industry is going, and it's getting more and more all the time. Butchers are always coming up with new products, so we try and keep on top of that, and we'll show you a variety of value-added products. AMPX 210, prepare and slice meat cuts. This will cover a variety of beef, lamb, pork, primals for retail preparation or display. So you're going to be able to, you look at a butcher shop and you see all the meat there displayed. It's all sliced nicely, and so hopefully you'll be able to slice them just as good and show them up and display them. So it's not just a matter of hacking in. It is a certain way to slice, making sure you get a nice clean cut. So hopefully we can show you that, and by the end of the course you can display a lovely tray of meat. Okay, there's 4 ways of assessment. These are units of competency, so you have to show that you're competent. And the 4 assessments that we use to find this out is written questions. You'll be given some questions on each unit that you research from your learner guide, and you'll write the answers down. And then we need to know that you've retained that knowledge. So while you're doing your demonstration, which is another form of assessment, we'll be asking you questions. So while you're linking sausages or filling sausages out, we'll be asking questions of why you do that. What's the best way to do it? So making sure that you have that information and not just written it down and forgotten about it. You need to know it. While you're demonstrating, you'll be showing your skills. And then in the meantime, there'll be a third party. It may be Kathy, it may be Ray, it may be somebody else that comes through and watching you while you're working. And they'll also sign a third party report to say that you're competent as well. So there's four forms of assessment, and you must be competent in those 4 forms. Some of the equipment you require, so obviously you just can't come in your normal personal clothes. You obviously wear them in, but you'll need to cover those because we need to protect the product, and we also need to protect yourselves. So as far as equipment, you'll need a steel, okay, a medium grade steel to steel your knife. And we say medium grade because they're fine, there's coarse, so medium grade is a good starting point. So, and a 25 to 30 centimetre one, they come in different lengths. You'll need a boning knife, a 15 centimetre boning knife, a curved knife is best. Okay, so that will give you the overall ability to do some trimming and some boning. We have a 25 centimetre slicing knife, or what we call a steak knife. Okay, that's also, so when we're doing the slicing, you've got the proper knife. If you can't do it with a small knife, you need a 25 centimetre knife to slice properly, and we're trying to teach you the right way to do things. And you also need a toolbox or a roll bag, okay? We're transporting knives, so there's certain regulations and laws we have to adhere to. So when you're transporting knives, either in your car or on public transport, they must be locked in a toolbox or some container that's lockable, okay? You just can't carry them in a normal bag. They must be locked in a container for transportation. We also require you to wear a cap of some description, a clean cap, okay? So whether it be a chef's cap or a baseball cap, but some hair covering of some description, so we don't have hairs dropping onto the product. You also need an overcoat or a chef's shirt, okay? So that also covers your personal clothing, right? You'll be moving around and you'll be using meat, and you'll get blood and you'll get meat and you get fat on your outer clothing. So you don't want that on your t-shirt or anything like that when you're traveling on the train home. So you need to have your personal clothing covered. And on top of that, you'll need an apron. Okay, for once again, we need to make sure the product's safe and also that your personal clothing doesn't touch it. And then we need full-length pants. So we don't want shorts, we want full-length pants, once again, to protect the product. And we need shoes, enclosed shoes with no laces. They don't necessarily have to be safety boots. They can be, but they don't have to be safety boots. But we don't want laces, as once again, meat and fat get caught up in there and you've got bacterial growth, and we don't want that. Thank you.
So all of these products are available at our William Englis site from the retail outlet Club Shed.
Right. In regards to the butchering room, when we actually have the butchering room, because Peter was talking about how the industry is highly regulated, when we move into the butchering room, because we fall under those regulations, there are a number of things that need to be followed. They're all about hygiene and sanitation. They're all about protecting you, the person, as also, you know, our customers who are actually buying various different types of meat. So this is where we sort of have our personal protective clothing that Peter was just talking about, things such as hats to stop hair, you know, dropping into the meat, or wearing coats. It's all about protecting the meat, because we could have actually touched something, you know, out into the outside area before we come in. And if we think when we're eating food, we'd like to think that it is safe to actually eat. So it doesn't matter what industry that we look at into food, to whether it's McDonald's or chefs, they always are wearing their protective clothing. So into this case, we're exactly the same. It has to be nice and clean to make sure that we don't get any cross-contamination. We don't want any of our bacteria that's on our body accidentally getting onto the meat. And we also need to protect you to stop any bacteria that could be onto the meat getting onto your body as well. While you're into the room, right, all the time that you enter, we always make sure that we maintain that personal hygiene. So that's the washing of the hands. right? We make sure that when we wash our hands, it is for the 20 seconds, right? It is up around our wrist, right? We hear lots of that in our current environment of COVID, right, as being the best form of, right, eliminating contamination. While you're in the room, because we have various different pieces of equipment around there, we need to be careful on how we move around those rooms. We don't want you to move around carrying knives, pieces of equipment. There is the chance that you can slip, and if you slip, there is that chance of then an accident occurring. So all that equipment you just can't use unless you actually receive training from us, right, on how to put it together, how to pull it apart, how it's actually used, according to manufacturers' instructions in regards to those pieces. And they're things such as the mincers, as Peter spoke about before. There will be, sharpening equipment. There could be tenderisers around. So while we're into our rooms, to whether it is a theory room or into our practical room, our unusual circumstances that we're going through here at the moment with COVID, the Institute, uses our social distancing quite extensively, right? It is the respect we show to other people. We are looking after their health, so we do ask you to make sure that you do maintain that 1.5 metres away from each other. As I was sort of talking about before, coming into the room, and as Peter alluded in regards to the various different theory units about hygiene and sanitation, right, it is important, and as I said, when we enter the room, we wash our hands. Under the regulations, we do have to wash our hands for 20 seconds, right, and does it include around the wrist area. And there's a variety of different times when we do have to wash our hands. Things such as really, common sense type areas. After we've been to the toilet, after we've handled rubbish and put it into the rubbish bins, after we've been handling meat for quite some period of time, we do get a build-up of meat onto our hands. We need to keep our hands nice and clean then. Right, from time to time, we may find that somebody injures themselves. We could injure ourselves as well. So therefore, if we do injure ourselves and there's blood around, if somebody's ill, then we may need to clean up. It's important that we wash our hands before and after we actually clean up those areas. Our personal hygiene, when we blow our nose, use nasal tissues, after smoking, before we go and eat, after we're eating and coming back into the room. Again, it's really important that we wash our hands. It's all about hygiene for ourselves and that's our customers. We don't want any cross-contamination occurring for you or as our customers. Right, so into our classroom, right, for our classes, right, as we're working through it, right, the various different units, you're developing your skills over a period of time. You're developing competencies. So during those particular classes, when you're gaining your competencies, you're being assessed as well. So attending classes is really compulsory about attending them. Right? We can't sort of say, oh, we can't be bothered, What you're doing is missing out on a lot of skills in that particular period of time, and it keeps putting you a little bit further and further behind. And therefore, if you finish up too far behind, then we can't achieve the competencies that's required to actually pass that particular unit. So if you're running late at any particular period of time attending your class, then it's important that you actually give us a call and let us as the teachers know that you are running 5 minutes late, 10 minutes late, right? So we may be able to make just a slight little adjustment. But Peter will talk a little bit later on about how important it is about attending on time, the amount of work that you've actually got to get through. So he'll talk about the importance in regards to that there. Right. If you do have to miss out on a particular class because you do have a medical emergency, you're unwell, that particular day, you've got to go to the doctors, then it's important that you do get a doctor's certificate and produce it to us, because we'll need to work our way through with you of making up that particular period of time and gaining those competencies to make your way through. So it will be your responsibility to catch up on any missed work, you know, putting in that little bit of extra effort, a little bit of time from time to time to catch up.
Right. Now, as you can see with the timetable, we're starting at 8 o'clock. The meat industry is an early morning industry 90% of the time. So we believe early start, early finish. So, but the timetable is a mixture of theory and practical. So we may move it around a little bit. We've got to be a little bit flexible these days. So we'll try and keep to it as much as we possibly can. But it is important that we have a number of breaks, approximately every 2 hours, that we have breaks. And when we have breaks, that you return on time. Whether it's 15 or 20 minutes, we ask you to come back. We'll set a time. It is important that you arrive back on time, because there's a certain amount of work we have to get done. And at the end of the day, we're in the practical room and we need to clean up, and it's time to finish. Well, sorry, we have to clean up. We can't leave it half clean. We can't leave half in the mincer. We have to get the job finished. So it is important that we start on time, and so we can finish on time. So make sure that when you do go in your breaks, you come back early, not early, but on time, so you're not holding everybody up, so that we can finish on time. So as I said, it will be a mixture of practical and theory. So sometimes we'll be in the classroom to do theory, and sometimes we're doing the practical. So it is important that we keep to our timetable. Okay, our first day of the semester is Monday the 27th of July at 8 a.m. and it's room D103. So that's the building is building D. It's 103. It's up on the first floor. And in that will include a campus tour. And hopefully we see many of you there. And well, I look forward to seeing many of you there. So thank you. Kathy, you can contact Kathy on her email address there, or in office D102, or the Student Management Centre, or the Student Information Centre.
Great. I hope you've received all the information today that you need. If you haven't, there will be a Q&A session at 12 o'clock on the 23rd of the 7th, where you can join in with the trainers and ask any questions you need to. Look forward to seeing you all there.